boy. Let's start right at the top. You got your walleye wisdom. I know Saginaw Bay a little bit. I know Dr. Shingles. Mike Shingles is going to like this because he's got a place up in Eau Gray. But the Saginaw Bay, in case people don't know Michigan, describe that whole, just in case, Doug, and then just take it from there.
Well, because of the way Michigan is shaped, we have a state and we do this. I guess I need to do that for the program, but Saginaw Bay in the thumb, that bay area, it's a giant piece of water. But yeah, no, it's been a great fishery. The walleye there have flourished. Over the years. There has been different levels fishery wise, but the current catch level, they've increased their catch level or keep level, your bag limit, so you can actually keep 6 walleyes, where inland you need to keep fewer. The fishing there has been incredibly good. The charters that fish out of there have been doing really well. And honestly, the Saginaw Bay, ironically, when the zebra mussels were first coming into our waterways and they were seen as an invasive species, they helped clean up the Saginaw Bay. And then other fish and things were feeding on them. But the water clarity in the Saginaw Bay is partly improved because of the zebra mussels and how they were able to take things out of the environment. And Saginaw Bay actually has had mayfly hatches, which they, for many, many, many decades, they never did because the water either wasn't clean enough or couldn't sustain that. But yeah, they even have mayfly hatches now, which is another food source that's very good for the fish. But we're diverted a little bit. So Saginaw Bay, I've been out there fishing. This particular photo is not from Saginaw Bay. This is from fishing for walleyes up in the UP, Manistee Lake. But I will switch over and give you a Saginaw Bay picture. So I was just out to Saginaw Bay recently, and
Now, for
that,
those of you listening on radio, don't be upset with us because we try to do both. We try to make people happy with this kind
yeah.
of stuff. So,
So this is actually Saginaw Bay. We're out fishing with planer boards. We're out in the boat, pretty low chop, nice cloudy day. So I don't burn up, but I don't do sun as well. I've been exposed to sun a lot over the years, and so I do wear things like that I can pull up and shade with. I wear fabrics that are smart fabrics that have sunscreen built into them so that they're light, they breathe well. I mean, this is one of the shirts that I wear fishing a lot. It's very comfortable. So
I'm going to let Doug talk about this and go through because he's got a lot of really great points here. Again, thinking about Saginaw Bay, Lake Michigan salmon, and the fall hunting. But let's finish this thread of the walleye and Saginaw Bay. Go right ahead, Doug.
I want to answer one of your questions. And by the way, that is a Saginaw Bay walleye behind me. I caught that last week. So I was trying to grab some recent photos. As a matter of fact, this is my favorite fishing shirt, which I'm wearing there, and my favorite hat. So there you go. That's as authentic as you can be. But the reason that walleye are highly desired, first of all, they are delicious. They are one of the best eating fish. Perch and walleye are known. Trout obviously is known. Depending on people's choice of food, salmon is also known in the Great Lakes states. In our state, those are the best eating fish. There's other fish you can eat, panfish, you can eat crappie, you can eat other species. But when you talk about top choices, walleye is one of our best fish. It's also a difficult fish to catch. So the challenge of catching walleye is what oftentimes draws people in. When I was young, all I wanted to catch was giant northern pike. They have giant teeth. They're massive. Just the massiveness of them and things. I've caught muskie before. Muskie are known to be, what's the thing they say, 1,000 casts for a fish if you're casting because they are difficult to catch. But yeah, right in the top choices. So that's why it's a prize fish. Hard to catch. It's definitely a predator fish, and they are delicious. So that the combination of all that is what makes them a prize game fish. So going back to catching techniques, recently I was on the Saginaw Bay. I have trolled body baits out there, so some real quick things on techniques. If you're watching charter boats and you're watching a lot of the charters are running body baits because it's faster than changing out meat harnesses, and they can run faster. They can basically produce fish for their clients faster, but you're running
Doug,
at faster speeds.
can I stop you for just a second there and explain what that I have no idea what that is. It's like
What is?
body baits.
Yeah. The
What is
people
that?
listening will understand, but essentially artificial lures.
Oh,
Specifically right now, what's been working really well is Berkeley flicker shads, 5, 7, 9. We were running sevens. We're running about 2.5 miles an hour to 2.7 miles an hour. Getting a lot of what we would call response strikes because the bait's going fast enough. If you're running by a school of fish or you're running by fish that are either laying on the bottom or they're not feeding, but they will respond. So run a little bit faster on your speeds if you're not picking up fish on the body baits. If you are using trolling baits with your planer boards or without planer boards, you need to be running about 100 foot of line. If you're running that 100 foot of line and you're running that out, say 10-pound test at that speed, you're going to be right in the feeding zone column wise for depth, because a lot of these fish right now, with it being this time of the year, catching fish down around 19 foot. They are out deeper, but the fish we were targeting were in that 15, 17, 19-foot range, and we were fishing east of the shipping channel. There's been a lot of activity in that inner bay and out on the bar. We haven't had to run deep for fish lately. That might change. This heat might drive them down, but there's a lot of minnows in the bay right now. So that's keeping the fish in feeding. Been really productive. We've caught a lot of fish, which means we've ate really well. So hopefully people get a chance to get out there and do that. Again, you can use crawler harnesses if you're running crawler harnesses, which we have. You're running slower. You want to think about how to get them suspended in the vertical column, because not just keeping them right on the bottom. So you'll want to think about that a little bit, whether you use a bottom bouncer or whether you're going to use a drop weight. But think about how to get your bait into the feeding zone. The goal and the thing that most fishermen have to remember is that fish don't feed down, they feed up. Their eyes are not on the bottom of their body, they're on their top. So they're looking out and up. So if you're below them, they're not going down for it. So you gotta stay at the water column where the fish are. And nowadays with the depth finders and the technology in the boats, you should be seeing marks where there are fish in the either below the boat or on your side scan. So that's the walleye stuff for Saginaw Bay. And I'm not sure where we're at, Tom, if we can jump on to Lake Michigan.
Doug, what's on the plate for this fall coming up? And typically the fall season in the Midwest, because as you know, these shows are evergreen and people may pick this up a year from now. So let's talk about the generalities that go along with fall hunting opportunities in the Midwest.
Well, so a lot of people, the most anticipated hunt coming up will be the deer season. And there are so many seasons, I can't actually say them all by memory anymore, because we have an archery season, we have the youth season, we have a liberty hunt season, we have a black powder, we have a firearm. So there's a lot of different hunting, but hunting will start kicking off here by the end of August, in the beginning of September. The main archery season will take place starting in October 1st through the end of the year. So it's going to be picking up. Right now, what normally is happening is people are getting ready to hunt. People are looking for where they're going to hunt. They may be setting up and clearing their hunting areas, making sure that the storms that have come through haven't destroyed their hunting shelter or knock their tree down that they normally hunt in. So there's a lot of preseason work going on right now. People will be putting their stands out, so stand placement. They'll be scouting, looking for areas, putting out trail cameras. The deer they have horns. They're developing horns. They're still in velvet, but it's pretty easy to start to see what caliber of animal that it's going to be in the fall. They'll start polishing their horns here pretty soon, but they're still growing. So, if you see something that's pretty wide and already got a bunch of points, people that are hunting are like, yeah, that's going to be a good buck. So That's mainly what people are doing. There are still people who are working on food plots or adding plants. We've pretty much done all of our maintenance early in the spring. We do some summer mowing, and we'll do some fall plants if we're going to do rye or greenery or bio food that we want to till under and let it be there in the winter, for the animals once there's snow on. So that's kind of what's happening right now. We're in preseason prep. The main thing to remember is this is also the time that if you have friends or people who are not prepared, this is a time to gather equipment, get them into hunter safety classes so that they can get their licenses and go through their training. Make sure they're reviewing if they're going out of state to hunt. Some people will be traveling this year. They might be visiting another state. Although hunting is similar, the requirements in Ohio and Illinois, Indiana, wherever you're at, they are slightly different. So you're going to want to check the regulations for where you're going. I will be going to Illinois this year. I'll be down in Illinois in November and again in December. So I'll be down there for an archery hunt, and then a muzzleloader hunt or black powder hunt. I like the black powder season. So I'll be down there again, hunting with Aaron Walker's group and Whitetail bucks are
Now, let me
us.
ask, how do you find your spots?
So first of all, it depends on two things. Well, I say depends on. There's a couple of things that come into factors. You do not have to do all the prep. You could be really lucky. Somebody could take you to a pre-established spot, or you could just go out to a state land spot and stumble into a good fortune and end up getting a really nice animal on your first time out. So beginner's luck kind of situation. If you are a ongoing hunter or a person who fishes, we will all tell you that when the season is over and you are longing to be connected, much like basketball fans are looking at basketball in the off season or looking at who's in the draft. So this is the activities that also keep people connected to the passion that they have for that sport or that activity. Um, you know, so the prep is partly to be prepared, but it's also sometimes going through your gear. I mean, I have a lot of hunting gear, and my wife, who's great logistically, has developed systems so that it's easier for me to make sure that I have what I need. And I say that because I have probably 5 different backpacks that I carry. Every one of my backpacks have a hunting knife and they have fire starters and things, but certain backpacks need to go to certain areas because I need different fall protection gear if I'm hunting in a tree versus hunting on the ground. And so she has helped me develop some packing lists that make it really easy. And I leave them on my backpack and I go take my stuff out of my backpack because during the year I might have needed something. I might have grabbed it and forgot to put it back, which I, as a guy, can do that sometimes. Then I quickly go through my checklist for my pre-hunt. I'm like, ooh, I need to make sure I get that. Or I used that last muzzleloader season. I didn't put it in my archery bag, which I don't need the muzzleloader bag till December, but I'm going to need the archery bag, October 1st. So it is really part of the passion of what you do. So if you're a mechanic or you're a NASCAR person, you know when the race season is, but you know when the off season is, and you're probably still following something or planning something or tweaking on something in the off season, and that's part of the preseason work.
It's with my head. I get that. That's all of the reps that you got to put in.
Reps, exactly. And that's same thing I heard you earlier in the show. I talked about my wife and I going out and shooting our bows.
Yep.
One of the things I don't want to lose sight of time wise is I want to get to hunting reminders and ethics. And one of the things in there, so I'm just going to jump forward for a minute. One, hunter safety courses. If you're traveling out of state, you make sure you have to have a copy of your hunter safety card. For some states, it's required in Wyoming if you're hunting to have it on your person. Some other states require that. So even if you have a valid license, even if you have the card and you're hunting and a Department of Wildlife officer asks you to present your hunter safety card, if you don't, you can get a ticket. Doesn't mean that you didn't have a valid license. It doesn't mean you don't have a card, but it's a requirement. So make sure you're reading your regs and getting your stuff packed. Michigan will let you print or request a duplicate. I have a duplicate in every one of my backpacks because I don't want to forget it. And so just request a duplicate card and put it in with your stuff. Also, make sure that in your backpacks, you're keeping a pen so that you can write on and sign licenses. Some states require you sign the license before you even move the animal. And some, I would recommend that if you're not sure, don't even take your hunting photos without tagging your animal, because some states are really rigid, and a lot of, if you read, more and more DNR groups are going to Facebook and getting people for a ticket for a social media post saying, well, clearly you shot this animal, you took a picture of it and you put it in your truck, but you didn't tag it, and it says it must be tagged before you move it, so therefore we're giving you a ticket, which is completely legit. But I'm saying just be mindful of your regulations so that you're not missing something. Carry zip ties, carry a way to affix your tags to your game, read your regulations so that, because they're different in every state. So ethics, it's all about making sure you're practicing with your weapons, with your bow, or if you're using fishing gear, make sure that it's not hurting the fish. So make sure that you've got your stuff set up right. Check your regulations, and make sure that if you're returning fish to the water, that you do it quickly. It's really hot out. Don't keep them out. You can, even though you release them, they could die. So just be really mindful of that, because if you're not keeping the animal or you're not keeping the fish, you want to make sure that you're supporting and sustaining the wildlife. So those are my main points. So have good ethics, get trained, continue in the off season, do the reps, as Tom said. So that's my final statement.
Doug Resseguie he's such a great guy. I cannot say enough about him. He's just amazing. And so love having him on here. Walleye and whitetail wisdom. Let me tell you, Doug brings he is so, again, organized. He's so knowledgeable, and he brings the best notes ever, and his storytelling is stupendous. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to Doug Resseguie and everyone else who helps support the show, our listeners, our sponsors, especially. Please support our sponsors. Without them, we can't do this just show. That's it. That's all there is to it. So please support our sponsors. Selling team of Keller Williams Realty, Brock Fletcher, Stacy Robinson, all of them, Mike Dedman, the whole crew over there, love them so much. And again, thank you to Doug Resseguie and Angela for what they do. They're great people, and we love them dearly. Thank you, everybody. I'm Papa Tom. This has been the Tom Matt Show. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Peace out. Love y'all.